Yo, just in time. So there's a song on the radio, you probably heard it. It talks about a smell that takes them back. Well, I think they're onto something, but as powerful as smells can be, I think there is something out there that can possibly be a bit stronger than a smell. And it probably comes from someplace you weren't thinking about. I mean, at least didn't actively think about for a while. Let's cut to commercial.
Animal crackers in my soup, monkeys and rabbits loop the loop.
So for some of you, maybe you were transported back to a specific time where you had this just jingle playing in the background while you were doing something else. Maybe you were playing a video game, or you were talking to a friend, or doing the dishes even. And for some reason, just hearing that song, Animal Crackers in My Soup, Monkeys and Rabbits Loop the Loop, it just triggered something, and it brought you back somewhere, wherever it was. For a lot of you, it's probably not true at all, and it is just some sound. But I have a feeling that there's a lot of people out there that will trigger something immediately. And I guess for me, it's just late at night, bunk bed, waiting for Adult Swim to come on, and just this taste of fruit by the foot in my mouth. That was something I didn't have a lot of. I didn't just chow down on fruit by the foot all the time as much as I wish I did. It was more just something I'd have once in a while. And yet, Animal Crackers in My Soup was something I would hear over and over and over. So why that moment? Why does it take me back to there? I wasn't actively watching the commercials. The commercials were just on. It was just a sound that was happening around me as I did whatever else it was and had that taste. So why does it stick? It's because you couldn't skip the commercials. I mean, yeah, you could change the channel and hope that there was another thing on that didn't have commercials on there, but that was the best you had. When you didn't have that on-demand entertainment like you do now, and you had your choices limited, you put up with a lot. And what you put up with was commercials. Now, this isn't going to be true for everybody who sees this, and for those of you seeing these commercials for the first time, you're welcome. This is what we had. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's actually kind of neat to see people look at these commercials and go, yeah, I don't get it. Oh, what's the point of that? Oh, okay, I guess their heads just turn into fruit. Yeah, okay, but that fruit meant something. That fruit was what came on before Samurai Jack, or heck, even just an episode of SpongeBob or something. I mean, chances are some of these are gonna really trigger something like PTSD level, and higher chances are that it's not. But for those that this actually does bring you back, just really think about why it does. For some reason, I hear a jingle, and I get taken right back to where I was, wherever I was first hearing it or heard it the most. But for me, I definitely get this sense of deja vu, a much more strong sense, and I don't think nostalgia is really the word for it. I think nostalgia plays a part, but it's not quite the power that a commercial has. And sometimes that location can change, it doesn't have to be the same thing every single time. So when you look at a commercial, or better yet, hear a commercial, and you hear a familiar sound, do you get taken back? What if you hear this?
We would like to play.
Or this?
When you call and use your credit card, we'll include the Elephants issue as a gift. Plus, you'll also get the colorful collection of animal stickers and the tiger poster. So order Zoo Books today.
Okay, maybe you didn't grow up with those commercials or with that sound, sure. I'm sure that's true for a lot of you. Let's say you are one of those people that heard something or saw a flash of light that just brought you right back. Well, I think that's the power of commercials. You really couldn't skip those commercials. I mean, if you wanted to watch something, maybe you just weren't paying attention and you were off doing something else while the commercials played in the background. Well, I think that's your answer right there. Because it was playing in the background and it wasn't the focus of what you were doing, it was just a sound that you heard, that's why it takes you back. It's because you weren't paying attention to the commercials. You couldn't skip them, they were playing, but they weren't the focus of what you were doing. I feel like I should admit that I went into this being a little bit cynical. Looking back at the 2000s, I really did remember the early 2000s being so much more fun and vibrant and experimental than the late 2000s. But that didn't mean that the late 2000s were completely devoid of any kind of nostalgia factor, or if anything, it was just people, advertisers specifically, not being able to keep up with the giant jumps in technology. I mean, things would become obsolete so quickly. Before, you would have lasting power, you would have products last longer because they weren't obsolete just a month later. Look at these cell phones. I mean, some of the cell phone commercials are incredible. And that's true for the 2010s too. But the 2000s just had not so much stagnation, but things were calmer at the beginning. At early 2000s, it seemed almost like advertisers were content. They knew what products they had and they were going to sell those products. But then when you get to 2005, things start to get hectic, faster, smaller. Commercials have the benefit of being bite-sized. They're not entire gigantic productions, I mean, most of the time. They're more small snippets just to sell you something. And because they're so small, they're able to take in more at a time. Like, can be, honestly. Looking at the way that we treat commercials now, compared to what we had in the 2000s, it's really obvious that our attention spans have completely changed, and that's probably just due to technology changing. It doesn't mean it's an awful thing, it doesn't mean we have to go back to the way it was. It's more about just acknowledging what made the 2000s such a wild time. And looking at the commercials, it's so easy to see just all of the new technology that would just come straight into your face. That was bad phrasing. So if I've said anything, it's that you shouldn't fear commercials. Or at least, you shouldn't hate commercials. Commercials aren't always cursed. Yeah, some of them are cursed, but not all of them. I actually encourage you, if you're studying for a test, or you're just working on some kind of project that you need white noise in the background, something that isn't distracting, but it's still something to keep you mildly entertained, or at least stave off the cold bitterness of silence. Try picking a year. Obviously for me, I picked the 2000s, but maybe you're looking for something a little bit later. 90s, 80s, those exist too. Thank God for VCRs. Just pick a year and let it play and see what comes out of it. You might be surprised. Hopefully you got something out of this. See ya.